Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of In the Box. The draft is in the books. Noah Dobson has been traded. Babiak, how are we doing?
I feel rather teased, right? I mean, we got all these insiders hyping up the craziest draft ever. Zero NHL players were traded on night one.
Yeah, it
And
was
then Elliot Friedman's response to absolutely nothing interesting happening was, oh man, the JJ Paterka trade, crazy, crazy night. You can make a 30 for 30 out of the JJ Paterka trade. If anyone makes a 30 for 30 out of the JJ Paterka trade, I will eat buffalo meat live
Buffalo.
on an episode.
That's
But I feel good about that because no one will ever care enough about the JJ Paterka trade for a
okay. You're
documentary.
you're clearly might be in a mood today. Yeah. It was very underwhelming in terms of like the actual developments. Like the biggest story on Saturday, which we're going to talk about, the Dobson trade, Coyle, Wood, Draft, Gibson, Spence, which was like the only Saturday trades, which are sizable of note, but not big by any means. Nyes, Tavares extensions, Bennett extension, Husso somehow getting an extension, Fabbro's extension, and then the Marner tampering thing, as well as we're going to do some like predictions where we think some of the top free agents are going to go. But yeah, the draft was pretty underwhelming overall. But we're going to start with the Noah Dobson trade because I'm an Islanders fan. That's kind of going to go in chronological order. Noah Dobson to the Montreal Canadiens with an 8-year deal at $9.5 million for the 16th and 17th overall pick, as well as Emil Heineman. I already went over it kind of on YouTube, so I really just wanted to dive into my guy, Emil Heineman, because I feel like he's being very underrated in this. I did like a deep dive on him yesterday. Insane stats. 6'2", 200 pounds, 173 hits this year in 61 games. In terms of his even strength defense, it's absolutely off the charts. He ranked 33rd in the NHL out of 340 skaters that played at least 600 even strength minutes with 2.1 expected goals against per 60. The next closest on the Montreal Canadiens was 2.54, which was Jake Evans. I'm very high on this kid. He's 23 years old. He's Finnish. Before he got hit by a car, he had 10 goals, 7 assists, 17 points in 41 games. So, like, we're going to talk about the actual bigger names in this, the Eklunds, the Sean Aitchisons, and the Dobson deal. But I kind of just like, that's something I didn't really touch on my initial video. I would not hate Matthew Darche to give this guy some kind of 4 to 5 year deal at like $2.5 million and just let him age into it because I think he is a solid. He's going to be a staple of the Islanders' bottom six. So yeah, we're leading off the Noah. What podcast is leading off the Noah Dobson trade with Emil Heineman? But I feel like he initially I thought he was kind of a throwaway because I didn't know that much about him. But diving into him, man, very very impressive player and definitely a guy that a lot of teams are coveting. He was drafted by Florida, no kidding. Bill Zito, he might have been Bill Zito's first or second draft pick after Anton Lundell. But yeah, Emil Heineman, remember the name. What's your thoughts on Heineman in the overall Dobson trade?
I have no thoughts on Heineman,
No, you didn't dive
which
in.
makes me in the 99.9% of human
That's where
population.
that's where Darsha thrives in the Heinemans.
Yeah, I mean, the stats sound legit. Good for you looking into them. I'll take it as like a defensive bottom six guy. The trade in the overall scheme of things, I like a lot more for the Islanders given the hindsight. I mean, I went into the draft saying Eklund and Aitchison were two of my big sleepers. I'm texting you at pick like 13 or whatever, like, oh man, I'm going to be so pissed if Eklund falls all the way to the Islanders. And he does. And they get Aitchison. So it's, the Islanders clear winner of the draft there. I love both of those picks. That was a better package overall than going all in for Hagen's, I feel. Which is less about Hagen's and more about the value of getting two very high upside prospects. I don't love giving Dobson the big 8-year extension right out of the gate. It's tough, right? This is a big risk reward move for Montreal. The big risk is we've seen what Noah Dobson's floor is, and it's not special. If Noah Dobson was making $9.5 million this year, he'd be overpaid by like what, 3 mil, 4 mil, based purely on this year. What he gave you.
The analytics were good this year, but like, and I use analytics so much, so I'm sure people are going to throw it back in my face. Like the analytics were very good, but someone that watches him night in and night out, not good this year. Not bad. Was in a tough role on a pretty bad team, but yeah, like he was much better last season, even if the analytics suggest that he was better this year.
Yeah, there's Noah Dobson's ceiling as a legit number one defenseman is worth that contract, but his floor is both an overpayment on the contract and an overpayment probably on the prospects you're giving up there.
Mm-hmm.
I
For
don't
Montreal,
really.
in fairness, they although they would have probably liked to get Eklund and Aitchison, I like the trade from the angle of like the 16th and 17th overall pick really doesn't mean jack dick for them. You know what I'm saying? Like they have so many young NHLers. They still have
In the
some
scheme
solid
of
guys in the
things,
prospects.
yes, and I know you can't grade things really. You have to grade them based on like what the picks are and expected value,
Yeah.
and not who the guys actually there were. But I really am high on both of the guys the Islanders got with
Yeah.
those picks. Therefore, I don't love it for Montreal. I don't know exactly how Noah Dobson fits in with Lane Hudson. I mean, if Dobson's not on your number one power play, that gets rid of
he can't quarterback
quite
the
a bit of
power
his
play.
value.
That's the other thing. He sucks at the power play. Like the Islanders, and it wasn't just him. We needed more actual goal scorers on the top power play. But yeah, as you mentioned, you're paying him legit number one money, and I know in 3 to 4 years, the salary cap going up, that might be more so to number two money. But they are giving him a solid amount. He's probably only going to play 21-ish minutes, same roughly as like Caden Gooley, who I like a decent amount going forward. So yeah, for Dobson, you're not even getting that high-end offensive production at $9.5 million. And he is more of an offensive defenseman than say a defensive defenseman. So the thing with this, like Canadians fans just assume it's some kind of slam dunk because they look at the size, 6'4", 200 pounds. He's not physical at all. The age, 25 years old. And I guess for the Canadians, like the first 2 to 3 years of this contract don't really matter that much. Like they're going to want to be a playoff team and they're going to want to have some success, but we agree that they're not really going to enter their window until 2028, 2029, most likely. So they're maybe overpaying to start, but it's not some kind of slam dunk like they're saying.
No, and I do also, it's not inherently bad, but it's a yellow flag. It's a mild concern that, as you said, Dobson definitely leans offensive. So now you have your franchise built around two going to be very expensive defensemen. Hudson hasn't signed his big contract yet. That's a year away still, but he will. And when he does, if it's going to be long term, it'll probably be around the Dobson number.
Yeah, that's so the other thing. If I could just chime in here, now the internal cap just gets like blown to shit. Like before, like Canadian fans were obviously delusional for thinking this, but they were like, Nick Suzuki and Caulfield only make $7.8 million. Like Hudson's going to sign around that, which I disagreed with, but I thought maybe like $9.25 million. If I'm Hudson, maybe he loves Montreal. Maybe he's going to sign some kind of sweetheart deal, but I'm playing this season out. And when I'm definitively better than Noah Dobson, a guy that you didn't invest in, that you went out and traded externally and then immediately gave him that without ever playing a game for the Montreal Canadiens, then I'm asking for 10.5. So I think that's another factor where I'd be maybe a little bit concerned for Montreal. Maybe it doesn't work out like that, but there is some concern if I'm Hudson, if I'm Demidov, that you immediately just gave Dobson that much money and you want me to probably take $9-ish million on a future extension.
Well, it's a huge difference between, a contract that's mostly covering RFA years and Dobson buying out one RFA year and the rest are UFA. I do expect Hudson's number to start in the high 8s or with a 9, not in the 10+ range because of the RFA.
If he goes for 70 points this year and Noah Dobson struggles, like maybe I'm just a harder negotiator and I'd want to get more money out of the Montreal Canadiens, but I don't know how, even with the RFA years included, how he's not looking and saying, I'm better than this guy. He's going to be better
because
than this guy.
Because it would be historically unprecedented for an RFA is the answer there. Cale Makar's RFA was, what, a 10 flat?
That was in a flat cap, 9.5 million.
Yeah, 9.5.
At like the start of the flat cap. That is a little different.
On one hand, that's a flat cap. On the other hand, that's the absolute maximum anyone has ever got for a contract that was buying out RFA years.
But so Brock Faber off his ELC after one rookie season got 8.5.
I don't think it matters. At the end of the day, I don't think the difference between 9 and 10 matters to a team of Montreal.
That's fair. Yeah.
Cap structure, they have plenty of room. It's not
their top 3 forwards are locked
one
up.
way or the other. This whole conversation is highly speculative. I was looking more at the angle of, now you've invested your 2 big money defensemen, both extremely offensive leaning guys, right? Hudson's like a 95% offensive leaning defenseman. Dobson probably like 75% offense, 25% defense. You can make that work, but it's kind of risky, and you do need to consciously start building the rest of your decor around it, which you have
Gooley's locked
Caden
up at
Gooley,
least.
you have
Yeah.
Arbor-Xhekaj, you're sort of, that's already a defense that's built to sustain that, but it's a tough balance. It's a tough balance.
Yeah, they're definitely David Reinbacher is going to have to pan out, considering they just give Noah Dobson that big money. There's a lot of pressure potentially on him to be that second pair, more so defensive guy to maybe play with Elaine Hudson. Because I don't expect the two of them to play together. That'd be a disaster in terms of Hudson and Dobson. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what they potentially do this summer. Maybe they actually do go out and acquire a defenseman to potentially like just stabilize that more so defensive side. For my Islanders, yeah, I'll just touch on it again. 16th and 17th overall. There was some serious risk heading into the draft, considering we walked away with Eklund, we walked away with Aitchison, and I really like Heidemann based on what I've watched as well as what the numbers indicate. I think it's like a perfect win-win for both teams. I think that the Montreal Canadiens definitely have more risk. For my Islanders, there really wasn't any risk because Dobson wanted 10.5. I mean, just kick rocks if you don't want to sign for like the same number as the team that drafted and developed you. And yeah, he didn't want to be there. Signing him would have just kept this team like aggressively mediocre for the next 2 to 3 years, most likely. So good on Darsh for looking to the future. And of course, when you get an Eklund, when you get an HSN, that's really going to look good 24 hours later. Not even, it was like 7 hours later. But yeah, these two teams are going in vastly different directions. Montreal coming out of it, the Islanders potentially entering a heavy retool rebuild. So yeah, that's just the price of doing business in terms of Dobson. We've seen some other defenseman contracts that we're going to talk about that we think are crazy, but maybe are just like the new normal when looking at a Kevin Ball or a Nick Cage. That was nuts last night. So maybe the Dobson after those, the Dobson 9.5 doesn't look crazy anymore, but it's a sizable risk for a player that I've watched night in and night out and displays severe inconsistencies and not always the best attitude on the ice after unfortunate play. So it's a solid risk, but it's a risk you're willing to take for such a premier position in the NHL, like right-handed defense.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You want to move on?
Let's.
The Coyle deal was absolutely insane. Like I think you shared in my sentiments with that. Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood. Coyle has 1 year left at $5.25 million. Miles Wood had 4 years at 2.5. And they gave up Gavin Brindley, the 33rd overall pick in 2023, who in fairness did struggle a decent amount at the AHL this year after having 53 points at the college level, 17 and 52. They gave up a second round pick. They gave up a third round pick. My take is I could be convinced on bringing in Charlie Coyle for your young forward core. If they gave up a second for Charlie Coyle, I still wouldn't love that because Colorado clearly was in a position of desperation to dump salary cap, similarly to an Evander Kane. But Coyle still is like a 35 to 40 point good defensive third line center. It's the Miles Wood part that just like blows my mind because he just straight up sucks. He had 8 points in 36 games last year. He was a -5. He had the worst relative expected goals percentage on the Colorado Avalanche at negative 7.1%. And he played one game in the playoffs, was a -3. Didn't see the ice for the rest of the Dallas Stars series. Like that's what, and again, it's $2.5 million. It's not the end of the world, but he's ass. Like he's objectively a league minimum player, if that. And to give up that many assets, and I know Columbus has a good prospect pool. They have a bunch of young forwards. Maybe they didn't think Brindley was a part of the long-term plan, but after 2 seasons, like what the fuck? Bad by Columbus. A team that I thought was done with like these Jarmo Kakalainen deals. What do you think?
Great. It's going to fly under the radar because no one cares about the names involved, but this might be the single worst trade that anyone made in the last week.
I agree.
Charlie Coyle, as you said, right? He's a fine, if overpaid 3C. I understand the attitude of Columbus has a billion picks and using a mid-round pick, second rounder to shore up your 3C position. You have a very young team there. You want some veteran help. You're vaguely trying to push for the playoffs next year, but not doing too much in that direction. So I agree. A third rounder for Charlie Coyle would be like fine. It's kind of it's bailing out Colorado's cap situation more significantly than Vancouver bailed out Edmonton's, but fine, whatever. Miles Wood is genuinely
just like Evander Kane more than Coyle,
worthless. I'd rather have Kane than Coyle, and Kane is on a cheaper contract. But I understand the approach for Coyle. As you said, Miles Wood, a truly worthless player. It's a negative value asset. He's been negative value since he started in New Jersey.
We watched him so much. Oh.
He has elite straight line speed and does literally nothing else at an NHL
brick
level.
for heads. Brick for heads.
That's what the people will say. Anyone who's trying to justify this trade for Columbus is just reading off those like the NHL
edge
tracking stats and saying, "Oh, he's one of the fastest guys in the league."
Bursts are crazy.
Yes, yeah, he's an elite straight line fast skater. Terrible at everything else. He can't score. He can't pass. He can't stay in front of someone else when he's trying to defend. He can't hit because he doesn't have the positioning to get in there at all. 4 more years of him. I hate that for Columbus. He should be a full-time AHLer on any serious team. I hate giving up on Gavin Brindley this early. Yes, his AHL numbers were very poor, but his NCAA numbers in the year after he was drafted were outstanding. Last summer, that seemed like a really good value they got in the second round, Gavin Brindley, after the year he had at Michigan. So if you're that discouraged by how he did in the AHL, I would have tried to, see what else was out there, because I refuse to believe. Like, if we treat this as a second and a third for Charlie Coyle, you overpaid for leadership or whatever, but okay, you want a little bit to shore up there. But then if you look at it as you traded Gavin Brindley for Miles Wood, I refuse to believe that's the best thing you could have turned Gavin Brindley into.
Again, yeah.
Surely you could have, wait and see how he does in the AHL this year, or otherwise just flip him off for like someone who's not a negative value given their contract.
Yeah, the thing, Coyle, again, you can somewhat justify trading for him, going out for him. Like the Miles Wood thing in a serious NHL economy, that should cost you at least a second round pick to dump his contract. I know 2.5 isn't big, but we were talking about a literal player that is an AHLer. Straight up. Yes. And he's like 30 at this point. It's not even like he's this 27-year-old, like probably when he signed in Colorado, where like maybe he can finally put it together with that skating and make something happen. Like he just straight up sucks. And not to make this about the Islanders, but it makes me optimistic that somebody might just take on like a Pierre Engvall at $3 million if people are willing to go after a Miles Wood. Where this really gets interesting is Colorado now has $8.9 million of salary cap space. So they could re-sign Drouin at $3 to $4 million. They shouldn't re-sign Lindgren, but they could either Drouin and like a half decent defender, or they could, we talked about it so much how they need like more so of a number 3, number 4 defenseman. They could now theoretically go after like a Gavrikov, go after a Provorov. I don't think like an Ekblad, but like they're seriously in the mix for some of these top guys. And also it makes the initial Coyle trade not look horrendous anymore, considering they're able to flip them. They gave up Mittelstadt, Zellers in a second, my favorite prospect, Bill Zellers. So they made up for that. But now Colorado, when we thought that they were going to have $1.2 million of salary cap space, could fucking do something really interesting.
I highly doubt they do, because with Makar's extension looming, giving
2 years, right?
No, he's a free agent next year, Makar.
Look it up. 2027.
Yes, he is. 2026 free agent.
I'm telling you it's 2027. Sorry for the listeners at home. Him and Quinn Hughes have 2 years left. But, okay, while you're looking that up, yeah, they do have to budget for that. But besides that, if you want to just pull up their full cap sheet, McKinnon's obviously locked up for the next 6 seasons. Taze is on a solid deal right now, $7 million. Like everything else, Blackwood's obviously locked up. Like I get what you're saying, but McCarr's probably only going to go up to what, 13.5. He easily could if he wanted. If he wanted, he could get 15. Don't get me wrong, but considering he took $9 million, even though it was a flat cap system, when he was after the 2021 season, I think after he was the Norris runner-up and probably would have won it if he didn't miss like 10 games to Adam Fox. So I get you got a budget for that, but the salary cap is going up $7 to $8 million the next 3 seasons. You find the Makar numbers yet?
Yeah, it's 2027. Spotrac lied to me there. Puckpedia is the only one with useful numbers.
So is there anybody else that they need to? I think everybody else is locked up for the most part. Nichushkin is locked up. Yeah, so they could. fit like although we agree that maybe a Provorov Gavrikov extension wouldn't age well for Colorado. Their window is so clearly the next 3 to 4 years, considering their entire core is 28 to 32 at this point. So they're in the mix for a lot of top names now, where I thought that it was going to be absolutely no shot given their cap situation.
Yeah, we'll see there. I mean, Natchez expires next year. From the
Natchez
sounds
too,
of
yeah.
things, they're not going to re-sign him, though. Whether that's because he has no interest in signing or Colorado's not super interested in keeping him. All reports there are that's not going to be an extension no matter what. So,
yeah, but besides that, I mean, yeah, Natchez, if he stays, $2 to $3 million raise. Makar, $4 to $5
it might
million
be better
raise.
to go after like a Brock Besser type as a future replacement for Natchez, assuming that you lose him next summer.
That's an interesting view. I could definitely. I think that they should probably be thinking more defense, as we talked about. Like Girard has fallen off a decent amount. Manson isn't quite exactly what he used to be, but there's definitely a lot more actual impact
to an
forwards.
extent,
Yeah,
also.
yeah. So I think that they should target the defense, but they're in a pretty good spot right now, considering what we thought that they weren't going to be able to bring back Brock Nelson, weren't going to be able to bring back Jonathan Drouin a while back. Like they still gave up way too much at the deadline to go for it that last season, but they're going to yet again be in the mix, and they might be my top team in the Central next year, if I'm going to be honest.
Really?
Over Dallas? Depends if Dallas can re-sign Granlund.
I think Dallas is set up much better even without Granlund.
Interesting. We won't break down our previews
Not
yet.
Too much in there.
You want to move on to the draft?
Sure.
I'm basically besides the people. If you're watching the podcast, you've definitely seen my draft grades on my breakdowns.
You've already put out like 4 hours.
I'm gonna let you like just take it off, and I'll riff off you. Anything
the funny
notably
thing is, all of my takes are going to be like the same as your takes anyway. I mean, I love what the Islanders did. They got great value picks. I hate what the Penguins did. They made 3 first rounders, and I don't think any of them are blue chip guys.
No.
Under the radar moves, my guy Sasha Boumedienne fell all the way to Winnipeg at 28. He fell under Cameron Reed. He fell under Hensler. So I do like that for Winnipeg. Nice pick. One under the radar pick I don't like at all was Columbus taking an MHL goalie. That's confusing to me weird. In the first round. People don't know who this guy. No one's heard of this guy before he was drafted.
He was
social media comments are comparing him to Sergei Bobrovsky because they're both Russian and Columbus, and that's the whole extent of it. The reality of what's going on here. The reality of what's going on here is this man is an MHL goalie, the second level, and he was a first round pick. Ilya Sorokin, after playing in the KHL, was a second rounder there. So Sorokin played at the top level of Russia, fell into the second round. Shesterkin played a little bit in the KHL, a little bit more at least, in the year coming into his draft. He was a third round pick. So using a first rounder on a guy who played 2 KHL games and other than that was in the Russian minor leagues, essentially, it doesn't make sense to me. There's really no precedent for it. If he's not going to be playing KHL games, you could have waited for day 2.
Yeah, that definitely was a head scratcher. I thought maybe they'd go with Ravensbergen, who was viewed as the consensus #1 goalie. I didn't think goalie was like the biggest need for them, considering I'm not going to say Jet Greaves is going to be their starter for the next decade, but he was so good down the stretch and was very good in the AHL. Yeah, I guess I just give them a pass because I think at 14th overall, Jackson Smith was a lot of value. I just continued throughout the process. Like he continued to rise on draft night. He was probably either my 10th or 11th best prospect. But even then, he is a left-handed defenseman. They have Werenski and Matejchuk there for the future. But yeah, that was arguably the biggest shock. Obviously, Jack Nesbitt for the Flyers at 12th. I was very low on him. I don't know if you had it.
Not like that pick.
Yeah, like I thought everything else that Philadelphia did. I know that you're not the biggest Porter Martone guy of all time, but I thought that they picked up a lot of value in the second round. So basically, like if you just look away from Nesbitt, you're like, that's a pretty good draft. But then you traded up to get him, or you probably could have got him at the 22nd.
I did not love Porter Martone on the assumption he was going 3 or 4. I thought Frondell was a clearly better prospect. Porter Martone at 6, I personally would have taken Hagen's, but I like the value of Martone at 6. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I had him at 4th on my board. I think that they need to get a center at some goddamn point because they still don't really have anything within their system unless they truly believe Nesbitt can be a 1C, which I think even the most optimistic Flyers fan is saying if he can be a 60-point physical, big, two second line center, you take that all day at 12th overall. But Martone, given the puck skills, is just so special. And the fact that they're going to have Michkov and Martone on the right wing for the next 20 years or something like that on the top power play, like that is salivating word. Like they had a clear objective in this draft to just get big dudes with a decent amount of skill. They got Van Sage later on in the draft. Like they targeted size. That was basically like, as always, like the big theme of the draft was just big dudes in the second round that really got out of hand. Like people with basically no production at the junior level that were going in the second, but Philadelphia really like pioneered that movement in terms of getting bigger, which is funny because I traded for Trevor Zegras, who's like the opposite of that. But I guess they're looking to fill the gap that maybe they don't have right now.
At least Philly's guys are like, decent production. I mean, Pittsburgh went big with their 2 picks in the 20s, but those are extreme low ceiling players.
Yeah.
Like high floor, maybe because they're big physical third line grinders, but Horkoff is
there's a lot of development
the lowest ceiling of anyone who went first round.
I think there's a high ceiling. There's just a lot of work to be done, especially with his skating. I don't like that pick a decent amount. Zonin 22nd. Again, I just think that was too early. Kindle, I do like a decent amount, but again, 11th overall was crazy considering some of the names that we talked about before: Eklund, Bear, Smith, all of those guys. Just Kyle Dubas, like maybe he had Kindle 7th, he had Zonin 13th on his board, and he thinks that he had the greatest draft of all time. But usually when everybody agrees that you had a bad draft and you're picking guys 10 to 15 spots too early, usually that shit doesn't work out historically. Like usually the Jesperi Kotkaniemi kind of picks, you actually aren't cooking to like you think you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give Dubas enough credit that he recognized that the consensus was lower on Zonin, so he did trade back, picking up some more assets in there. I mean, like,
yeah,
if you're taking the mindset that you're dead set on a guy that everyone else is ranking lower, trading back is the right move. So he did that part of it okay.
But then didn't he trade back up to get Horkoff? I think because he traded 22nd and 31st, that he eventually, I don't know what the hell he gave up to do that. But yeah, so yeah, it's like the thing is, like Kindle, I thought would have been there. He's an undersized guy from the CHL. Like those guys usually don't go that high. I think of like a Zach Benson last year, Andrew Crystal back in 2023, both of those guys. But yeah, for him to be like, I need my guy. He was not at all on my radar at 11th overall. I thought they were going to go with a Jackson Smith. They were going to go with an Eklund or something like that. When Kindle's name got read, I was shocked. And like again, like they had 3 first-round picks. Their prospect pool improved a lot, but they should have been coming out of this draft probably big winners, and that's not the case.
No, I agree. I don't think a single one of their guys is a blue chip, sure thing prospect. All of them, could be total flops.
Yeah,
it's possible.
And again, the thing with Pittsburgh that I keep on saying, like this draft, it's going to matter. They need to get solid pieces, top 6 forwards, top 4 defensemen. But at the end of the day, what their rebuild is going to come down to is the next 3 to 4 years when they're actually picking in the top 5, hitting on those guys. Like the outside of the top 10 picks, I've shown like the hockey prospecting like stats. It's a coin flip that you get like a good NHLer and a solid NHLer. There's like 50% chance.
This was a weaker draft than average.
Dude, like
people want to pretend that's not the case because everyone's excited about their prospects. Let's be super clear. This is a below average draft.
Like 2023, 2024, maybe I just did more like prep going into it, but like there was still, from what I remember, like names in the 3rd round where I was like, that.
No, I mean, it was consensus. It was 2 months ago. It was consensus that this was one of the weakest drafts in recent memory. And then the closer you get to the draft, the more everyone tries to hype it up and build excitement for it.
Like even the latest round steal that I would say, like LJ Mooney and Cameron Schmidt, like those guys were the only guys that like pick 60 or 70 still remaining, and like even then I'm like, there's a lot of skill, but they are 5'7". Like that, you do have to overcome that, and we're both not believers of size is the only indicator. You can beat the odds obviously, but like those guys aren't some sure thing where like in prior drafts, there's usually still solid names in the third round where you think, damn, we got him here. That just didn't really happen, except Luca Romano going to my New York Islanders. He's a beast. But yeah, it was like I just started prepping my video like once we were at pick 70. So I was like, I don't think anybody really moves me beyond this point.
No, I mean, I'm a shallower awareness of the draft pool than you, but there
Mm-hmm.
was like 3 total day 2 guys who I had any particular
Mm-hmm.
opinion about. And it
You
was
want
just
to
not
you
a
want to talk
deep
about a guy
draft.
that you have a big opinion on next
Yes,
in
yeah.
Jordan
If we're
Spence?
talking about like not sure things, not useful NHLers, good for Ottawa for finding a useful NHLer in the 3rd round with Jordan Spence.
68th overall and 6th.
I hate so much how LA has just completely botched this entire thing. You have 2 very talented, very skilled, young right-handed defensemen. Both have proven at the NHL level that their offense is legit and that they're not
Mm-hmm.
black holes defensively, right? They cover enough defensively. They work within your system to not give up goals defensively. Brant Clark and Jordan Spence should have been the future. Instead, neither of them fucking plays games. The
16 minutes a night.
35-year-old half skull, half one-armed, one-legged corpse of Drew Doughty playing 27 minutes a night. Joel Edmondson was playing more minutes a night this season than Brant Clark and then Jordan Spence. Last 2 seasons, Jordan Spence, 1.2 points per 60 at even strength. That's better than what Drew Doughty's given you per minute. And LA gives him up for absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I don't understand the logic here. I love it for Ottawa. I love it. This moves me. This is going to be the one transaction this summer that pushes me over the edge and says, okay, I believe Ottawa will be in the playoffs again next year.
Yeah.
He's a really good fit there. He is, because Ottawa has 2 nice defensemen and some, supporting defensive pieces around them. But for me, what they were missing was that number 2 offensive guy who's going to be the second guy running a power play, because it's not Shabbat. Thomas Shabbat's a very good overall hockey player,
Yeah.
but I don't love him as far as like an offensive option for a playoff team. Now you can run lines, right? Sanderson, Zub work together. Shabbat, Spence as your second pair.
I think you throw him with Clevin on the 3rd pair most likely. You obviously don't play him 16 minutes a night, but yeah. This is an awesome. Also, Nick Jensen might be out for the start of the season, so that's another thing. Like he's coming off major hip surgery at 35 years old. It's easily possible that he does start on that second pair. It's interesting. Spence, it's kind of like Timothy Liljegren in Toronto, and that has been solid for the San Jose Sharks. The underlying numbers are awesome. There also is some context that his competition, according to the JFresh card, was only 15%. He did play pretty sheltered minutes, not just small, tough minutes. So there is some concern with that. But yeah, for this cost of acquisition, the fact that he only makes $1.5 million next season. So for a team like LA that is contending, that wants those cost efficient guys, it is kind of crazy that they got him for this dirt cheap. And just overall for Ottawa, the one weakness of this team going forward 13 months ago was the right-handed defense. They had like nothing, literally nothing. And now they have Yakimchuk. I'm not that high on. They shouldn't have selected him at seventh overall, but they have him. They got Hensler. They got Spence. Mantapalo kind of looked like something towards the end of the season. Like they have completely revamped the right side of their defense to where now, as you said, I think that they are probably going to be a safe playoff team next year. The internal growth in Spence, who was a plus 23 last year, had the highest expected goals percentage on the LA Kings. I think he's really going to bring in some offensive pop that they maybe were lacking, and especially lacking come playoff time.
Yeah, I love him as a second pair guy. I like him as a more offensive counterpart to Shabbat, who Shabbat's like a good all-around player, but Shabbat doesn't have a great shot. He's not going to blow your mind with stretch passes.
Mm-hmm.
He's just going to be consistent, stay in the right areas, make safe plays, limit turnovers. It's a more, I guess, calming presence to put next to Spence. But I do believe in Spence as a legit top 4 guy. My comparison is not Liljegren. It's Toronto's other young defenseman that they gave up on early, Rasmus Sandin. I think Jordan Spence can I won't say he will
That'd be awesome.
easily be the level of Rasmus Sandin, but I think he can be that.
Yeah, yeah. And again, Liljegren's a good player as well. For LA, like, if they do this and then they also just play Brandt Clarke like 17, 18 minutes a night, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. Like, I can understand doing this
I hate it.
And just fully giving Brandt Clarke 21 to 22 minutes a night, top power play, hopefully, for the love of God, for the LA Kings, who have such a mediocre power play. If this is them choosing Brandt Clarke, investing in Brandt Clarke, then I can somewhat see it. Blake obviously should have traded him last summer when he didn't expect to play him that much. And you probably could have got an early second round pick for Jordan Spence at that point when he still had some potential. Well, still really had some potential and really was young and team controlled on a 2-year deal, $1.5 million. So they should have traded him a while back instead of now where everybody knows, like, you're not going to play him that much. And going forward, he doesn't have that much of a role. It's weird. LA, like, you obviously love your franchise legends to age amazing like they have in Kopitar and Doughty, but kind of my take is, like, it fucked them in terms of their next generation. As you mentioned, Drew Doughty's still playing 26, 27 minutes a night, and he's still a good player. He plays really tough minutes. He is good, but as you alluded to, like, they should be trying to transition to Brandt Clarke, trying to transition to Jordan Spence, as well as a guy like Kopitar, still a legit number one center in the NHL, but as a result, Byfield has had to kick out to win, but wing. Byfield has had to play the second line center or third line center position. So it's like, it's just a really weird situation. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. With that said, like, would you have traded them back in 2018 and just started with a blank slate? Because obviously it hasn't translated to playoff success of late. It's all interesting discussions because, yeah, the mini retool that they went through kind of failed, but also they were able to get good guys like Fiala. Kempe developed, and now they're just in this weird spot of being good but not great.
I don't think anything that LA's done recently was like a bad move, except for their minutes management. Honestly, I think the process is all correct. The transactions were good, and it just comes down to, at the end of the day, like, you should play these guys, and you're not. There's no reason to ask Drew Doughty to play all of those minutes. He's old. He shouldn't have to.
Yeah,
it's not like Jordan Spence can't handle tough minutes and he needs to be sheltered. We have no idea what kind of minutes he can handle because LA refuses to try because their coaching philosophy is all in on the old guys. I mean, it's one thing to say, Doughty, Mikey Anderson, you have your core here, Gavrikov, but like Joel Edmondson is not all that good. What's Joel Edmondson doing logging up all those minutes?
Like, yeah, they put Clarke with Edmondson, and I believe that the results were not pretty in terms of that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because LA obviously has this very defensive system, and their defensemen do play good within it, maybe a little bit of inflation there, but now they're going to lose Gavrikov. Now they're going to lose Jordan Spence, where I don't really have as much faith heading into next season in terms of their defense core. I'm not sure. They do have some money to spend, but if Gavrikov's gone, I don't think that they're going to land Provorov or Ekblad. So it's going to be very interesting to see, like, a new look LA Kings defense core. And Ken Holland building out that defense core.
Like, to be clear, they shouldn't be going for Ekblad. Like, if you sign Ekblad,
obviously,
play Brandt Clarke another 15 minutes a night, what are you doing here?
No, obviously it would be after a lefty.
But no, it's, everyone knows the book on the LA Kings. They're great at not letting in goals. They're pretty bad at scoring goals. You have the personnel to try scoring more goals from the blue line, and you just choose to not use it. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it should have been a more even minutes distribution. And the thing is, like, when Drew Doughty was out, Brandt Clarke was scoring at like 50-point pace. Like, he started out fantastic, and then Drew Doughty came back. Brandt Clarke went back to playing second power play or no power play at all, and like back on the third pair. Like, these guys can step up in a big way and contribute to your team.
They can, but LA doesn't let them. And if this all fails, it'll be purely on the minutes management.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to stick in the LA greater area. The Anaheim Ducks finally traded John Gibson to the Detroit Red Wings for a second, a fourth, and Petr Mrazek. For me, it's definitely somewhat of a risky deal for Detroit, considering the cap hit, no salary retained, $6.4 million. But the goalie market's like an utter shit show this summer compared to last year, where you had a bunch of guys available and established, consistent guys. Gibson's the best thing out there. It is only 2 seasons. He's the perfect kind of stopgap between, either one of Augustine or Kosa really developing into something special. And I think at least one of them will, considering how good they've been at the AHL and college level. And yeah, Gibson, I do think that there is something to playing on such a bad team of late. He was bad in his own right. We saw it with Cam Fowler. As soon as he got the hell out of Anaheim to like an actual competitive team, he turned into an absolute stud. So for Yzerman, he obviously should have like brought in someone like 2 to 3 years ago to be a good goaltender. It is on him to like now have to rely on a 31-year-old Gibson at good starter money. But yeah, the other options was like Jake Allen or like a reclamation project like Elvis Merzlikins, Thatcher Demko, Korpisalo, Varlamov, Sam Urson or something like that, where they got the top fish, 9-11 last year, 15 goals saved above expected. Didn't really give up that much from an Anaheim perspective. You maybe should have got a little bit more, but it was a little bit tough unless you were retaining money to get like a first. Apparently, he wanted like 2 first-round picks either at the deadline or like 2 years ago. I don't know how legit that is. But for Anaheim, you got to give Lucas Dostal the bag. We'll probably, I guess, also lump into this. I don't know why Ville Husso's the fucking backup heading into next season, making $2.2 million when he's just utter dog shit. But yeah, I like this for Detroit. Anaheim, it is what it is. It's similar to the Zegras deal. Like the value. Well, I guess Gibson the value. He did play good this season, but the contract made it tough.
I mean, it's like the Zegras deal, because like the Zegras deal, I don't really understand Anaheim's whole long-term approach, and I don't understand why you would trade him now if this is all you can get. Like, it does seem pretty clear that if your return is this low, the time to trade him was a couple years ago when you were at your peak tanking period, and not for nothing at all right at the end after your tank period.
I'll push back on that a little bit. He was like an 888 last season, like an 892. Like, yes, you maybe could have traded him back in like 2019, 2020 when you were just entering and he still had value, but he didn't have value the last 2 to 3 years when he also had two to three more years on his contract. So I would disagree about that. I think it was the time to trade him. You would have liked. I wish that they ate some money on him, because I don't think they're going to be spending to the cap this summer to potentially get a first-round pick. But yeah, he bounced back this year. But also in his bounce back, you saw Lukas Dostal is the future for this team, and you want to give him 50 games and paying John Gibson $6.4 million to play 30 games makes no sense. So I think that it is the right time. You can criticize maybe not eating money, or maybe not getting a second and a third, or a late first round pick maybe, but I do think that it's fine by Verbeek. But when you stack on top the other deals that he's done, it's obviously becomes a little bit confusing, like Trouba, like Kreider.
What's confusing is about the money part is this doesn't actually save Anaheim money, because they sent out $6 million and change in goalies from Anaheim to Detroit. Detroit to Anaheim goalies in the last few months, $6 million. Mrazek and Husso are combining to make $6 million this year.
No, Husso's done. Signed an extension like for next season. 2.2.
Yes, 2.2 plus Mrazek's cap hit. You are not actually saving any money by having Mrazek and Husso on your team versus Gibson. So why you would refuse to retain on Gibson, but then absorb Mrazek's contract when Mrazek is not good? That's a bad contract. And then also
he does
pay
have
Husso way too much for a third stringer.
That's gross. Mrazek has 4.2. Oh.
Mrazek's contract is terrible. I don't understand it.
He was good in that 2023, 2024 season, and then they decided
he was good for half a year in
like he was before he signed with,
and half a year in Carolina. And then over the last 5 seasons, he's had 2 chunks of being good for half a year. That's not good. For $4 million, that's not good.
Yeah.
And
I missed that. You're right.
You see now, you look at the math here. What on earth is the logic of we could retain $2 million on Gibson and maybe get something better, or we could save $2 million by going from Gibson to Mrazek and getting a much worse goalie in the prospect, and then turn around and give that $2 million to a third string goalie who's also not good? I don't understand the asset management here, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
You didn't save money. Verbeek did not save money on the non-Goshtal goalies.
Yeah. I guess I just thought Mrazek was only making $2 million, but I'm gobstopped.
No, he's expensive.
$4.3 million next season. That is egregious. I think the Husso one is honestly one of the dumbest things of all time. Like Husso had
Dumb
that.
in the context of you're already paying $4 million to your backup.
Yeah, like $2.2 million. Again, that's not going to financially ruin the Anaheim Ducks, but this is a guy that we saw have 29 good games. I tweeted out like 29 good games in St. Louis, and he still sucked in the playoffs. Got the 3x 4.75. Then he had 4 games in Anaheim. He had a 925. Oh, he's legit. Like, hell, let's pay him like good backup money. And now
he's
it's
going to
2
be in
years.
the AHL next year for most of the season. Either him or Mrazek's going to be in the AHL.
I guess the logic is Mrazek only has 1 year left, but yeah, it's compared to Gibson's 2. But that is dumb. That is really fucking dumb to only get a second and a 4th round pick. Jesus.
The Anaheim Ducks saved less than $100,000 on non-Dostal goalies,
and I mean,
from this overall transaction window.
Yeah, and I mean, Detroit also dumped Husso at the deadline for Verbeek.
To Anaheim,
Drury and Yzerman might have blackmail on Verbeek. I think that's what we're getting at for the most part.
I don't understand what Verbeek is doing. I get the sense that he knows he's being fired if he doesn't make the playoffs this year and is just grasping at straws, absolutely desperate to come up with anything to squeeze an 8 seed out of this team. But like, this move won't help Anaheim win games this year, right? Their backup goalie situation got worse, and you didn't save money. So what was the point of any of this?
Again, I guess I should have done a little bit more research because I just did not see the Mrazek cap hit of $4.3 million next season.
It's
that
brutal.
Is fucking nuts. All right, we're gonna move on to some of the extensions now. Knies and Tavares both took discounts. Tavares took a 4-year deal at $4.38 million. Knies 6 years at $7.75. It eats, I believe, 2 UFA years. You maybe would have wanted to get to $8 million, but it's 6 years for a guy that last year was 30 and 30 almost, 29 and 29. And it's 6'3", 230 pounds. That's one of the best contracts in the NHL, in my opinion. Yes, he does benefit from playing with Matthews and Marner, but he is he's what Toronto has been missing come playoff time in terms of that physical forward. For Tavares, regular season, it's an A++++, obviously. 38 goals, 36 assists, 74 points, 75 games last year. He has been kind of ass in playoffs throughout his entire career with the Leafs, 31 points in 51 games, and then 6 goals, 3 assists, 9 points in the last 2 runs in 20 games. And this is a pretty shocking stat. Guess what his stat line is in 12 games against the Florida Panthers in the second round? Take a guess.
0 goals, 3 assists.
You got the points right. 2 goals. He has 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points in 12 games. So they need to find an answer, in my opinion, at the second line center position. I don't think John Tavares can be a championship second line center, and the numbers that I just showed in the last 2 playoff runs and overall definitely suggest that. It is a discount. Again, some team that wants to make the playoffs might have given John Tavares a 5 by 6.5 or something like that. So it's a good deal for them. Knies I love. Tavares I also love. But it opens up salary cap space for hopefully what should be a bigger move maybe next year at the deadline or something like that, where they could potentially move Tavares down to the third line center.
Tavares, I'm neutral on. Knies, I love it. It's outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 30 goal, 60-point season as a 22-year-old. You sign him for basically the same cap hit as Brock Nelson for $2 million more than Morgan Geekie. It's shocking how good this is, right? Every single other contract this summer has looked like, oh, well, that seems kind of bad, but the cap is going up, so eventually it'll be kind of okay. Knies, you don't need any kind of those qualifiers. It's just a good contract. If he signed this a year ago, based on the flat cap, this would be a good contract.
Yeah.
If Knies plateaus, if he doesn't just develop 30 and 30 goal, 60 point just is what he is, you're getting a really good value at under $8 million.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah, especially we have some concerns about JJ Peterka, considering his on-ice shooting percentage, considering his defensive capabilities. There's none of that with Matthew Knies. This guy is a 2-way freaking demon, and we've seen it in the playoffs with him. He is just that guy that you want. Like, I hate to be like Florida Panthers. He's a Florida Panthers kind of player, but he is. So at $7.75 million, I expected it to be 4 to 5 years at like low 8s, but clearly they actually are getting guys to buy in. The anti-Mitch Marner is finally happening. Like after waiting for so long for guys to actually take these cheap deals, it's happening. And if you're a Leafs fan, you got to be pretty elated.
Yeah, I was also fully expecting Nyes to go 3 years, 4 years. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I expected, not because that's what he deserves, but because I expected his attitude would be like, I'm not even thinking long term. I'm thinking bridge and then cash out for an 8-year in my mid 20s
Yeah.
with a much higher salary cap. This is an insane discount, I feel.
Yeah, if you told me 6 years, I would have said like 8.75, $9 million, most likely for Matthew Nyes. Like
I think
I think
9
that
mil would make sense with like the cap
yeah.
inflation based on the other contracts we've seen
Yeah,
this summer.
definitely. Yeah, considering Wyatt Johnston, who I do rate higher than Matthew Nyes, signed 5 years, 8.4 in the precious no state income tax. The fact that the Leafs players are finally buying in to like what other teams do, and other teams do have some benefits tax wise, but it also is about your players not.
Toronto has benefits sponsorship wise,
Yeah.
right? It does go both ways there.
Oh yeah,
Wyatt
yeah.
Johnston is
We
not making any meaningful money from local
yeah.
sponsorships in Dallas the way Nyes
Yeah,
can in Toronto.
we've had this before. We've had this debate before, but it's like it's the Winnipegs that get fucked on stuff like this. It's not Toronto if you're a high end player. You are not getting fucked on the state income taxes because you're making it back in other sponsorships.
Yes.
All right, another extension, Dante Fabbro, and we'll also, I guess, talk about the Hague extension here, or sign and trade, considering it kind of goes hand in hand. Fabbro, 4 years, $4.125 million, got waived for some reason because Barry Trotz wanted to play like Luke Shen or Justin Barron more throughout the season, 6 games into the year. And he's been a beast. He's been a beast with Columbus. He's obviously playing with Zach Werenski. That does inflate you a little bit, but the numbers of him and Werenski this season, 54.4% expected goals percentage, 57.1 goals percentage. You compare that to last year, and that was in 1,000 minutes together. Compare that to last year, Werenski and Severson, 44.9% expected goals percentage. Him and Boquist, 45.6%. So, yeah, although he's playing with arguably top 5 defenseman in the entire NHL, his game is clearly suited to play with Werenski in ways that other guys previously weren't. So to lock him up, he's 26 or 27 years old for basically his prime years at $4 million, basically, is like insane value for Columbus. I thought if he hit the open market, he was like the only notable right-handed defenseman besides Ekblad. Probably could have got like a 6x6. I don't think that's that ridiculous.
I'm basically neutral on it. I'm not anti-Fabbro, but like the contract feels like he was signed for what he's actually worth and not
That's
for
fair.
what his Werenski merchantness is. Although, you know, if he's going to be signed to be a Werenski merchant, that's fine.
Yeah,
right?
it's like the
difference for
geeky deal,
Columbus.
which I don't know if we're
Doesn't
going to
matter
spend
for
any
them.
time on, but it's like,
But I do think it's like a neutral contract. Can we talk about how Barry Trotz might be like the worst GM?
yeah. On the flip
like
side,
great coach, years and years of being a great coach. Barry
he's Phil
Trotz
Jackson.
botched free agency last year. He did. He botched it. Terrible contracts to Stamkos, Marchessault. I think he botched the draft this year.
Brady, yeah, we didn't talk about it, but
Brady Martin, number 5. I hate that. I think he botched handling the trade deadline last season, given that, you know, Fabbro being waived should have got back a real return. Sold low on a couple of unimportant players. It's
the Shen, Bunting deal was weird. That was really weird by him.
And then
Shen and
you know,
Novak.
His response to getting in another defenseman is bringing in Nick Hague at $5.5 million. He's not worth that.
Yeah.
Look, Nick Hague has been a nice third pair D for Vegas. He maybe that's what his level is. He's a third pair
16
D
minutes
on a good team, a second pair D on a bad team.
Yeah,
$5.5 million seems absurd, and tells me they're going to ask him to play a much bigger role than he should be playing.
Mm-hmm.
It tells me that Nashville has no hopes of being a serious contender this year for anything, but that they're not committing to tanking either.
Yes.
That they're going to commit to keeping on veteran players, spending near close to the cap, having another season with 80-something points, and that'll be that, which I don't like at all. The flip side of this, is all of the rumors over the weekend where he was going to be sent out to Toronto as part of a Marner sign and trade.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Toronto fans, you should be thrilled that you're not on the hook for paying this contract to Nick Hague. Roy, I like as a third line forward.
And he's locked up 2 years, $3 million. So that's like,
yeah, and it's a good contract there. Nick Hague on this contract, you dodged a bullet. But the fact that Vegas took salary back in this seems to mean that they're out on Marner.
Apparently, it just got announced, the Sisson trade. I think that I think Nashville retained on the Sisson trade too. Like, I don't even think that they're getting Sisson. I think they're getting him at 1.5 retained. I can try to pull it up right now. So I think that the problem is, I think they have Marner money just because they don't have Pietrangelo next season now.
Given that, assuming the money's not retained, which I didn't see that when I checked.
Let me see. Yeah, Sissons is 50%. Lazan is full, but Sissons is half retained. Just saw it on LeBron. That was right as we started recording.
That's interesting then. So Vegas has almost 11 mil. It's 10 and 9 and change.
Is that with Pietrangelo on LTIR?
With assuming Pietrangelo's out.
Okay, so they could still wad. They could still wad up. I assume it's not assuming was $3 million.
No, that's just the current cap space in there. If you trade out Wah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's also bizarre then from Barry Trotz. You only have so many retention spots, and you felt like using one on Colton.
Nope, we're gonna be good next year. We're gonna be good next year. Yeah, $2.8 million. We got to retain half of that. Vegas was definitely laughing at. I mean, in fairness, it was a conditional third round pick as well that Nashville got. Not that fucking matters that much, but yeah, interesting deal in terms of that. When looking at it, like, you thought to start off the day, you're like, the Kevin Ball deal, I don't like that much. 6 years, 5.35, and then like 10 hours later, a much worse one. Like, I would much rather bet on Kevin Ball. That's 24 years old, actually has pretty good defensive results, and in a first year played 21 minutes and actually handled it pretty well, compared to Nick Hague, who is just an okay third pair guy. On it, in fairness, he fills that role fine on an actual contender, but you're not even getting like years, 5 or 6 years, where you could say, like, when the salary cap continues to go up and 5.5 is only 4.1 or something like that, like 4 years, not gonna be that much different against the cap.
No, he is what he is as a player. He's not a great player. I'm so confused by what Barry Trotz is trying to do. I can't wait for Nashville to sign like Cody Ceci or something.
Cody Ceci's going to be in demand, man. You're going to be surprised when he signs another like 2x3. There's nobody out there. I know you're going to say, oh, he's better. Like, nobody is better than Cody Ceci. Like, getting a fucking AHLer, but like, there's such a demand right now.
Getting Jordan Spence for $1.5 million looks really good if Cody Ceci is going to cost that much.
I think he will. I forgot to mention the Bennett extension when we were going through things. You want to talk about that for a bit? I think we're both in agreement.
I don't know if I do, right? It's fine.
Yeah,
he's a
$10 million playoff player. He's a $6 million regular season player. So what's the difference? $10 million, $8 million. It makes sense. 27 goals, 24 assists, 51 points in 61 playoff games over the last 3 runs. It's fucking crazy. Like, in his physicality, it clearly translates to the playoffs. I don't know if he's going to put up those paces every single year with the Panthers, but he's well worth $8 million, and they're a team that their window's the next 3 to 4 years, and they're going to be a safe playoff team.
The Athletics chart shows that over the last 2 playoffs, the 2 cup runs, Sam Bennett's playoff value, contract value, is actually like 14 mil based on the paces he's put up in the 2 cup runs, which is absurd. I like it fine. I think we were both expecting Sam Bennett to sign a stupid overpayment. Mm-hmm. This isn't that. This is totally okay.
Yeah, and when looking at it for Florida now, Barkov has 5 years. Kachuk has 6 years. For Hague, I think a 7-year deal kicks in this season.
Bobrovsky's off the books next season is the big thing.
So they'll probably re-sign him on a 2 to 3 year deal at $4 to $5 million. Like, they're obviously, they need to figure out what they're going to do with Marchand and Ekblad, and we'll talk about them relatively soon when we do some little predictions on these free agents. But like, once they either re-sign one of those guys, like, their entire team is locked up for the most part for the foreseeable future. Lundell is on that 5-year deal for the next 5 seasons. Luosterainen might be the one that's going to need money relatively soon. I don't know exactly what his contract is, but everybody else is locked up in the salary cap is jumping $8 million per season. Like, yes, there's going to be some age regression soon with the Panthers, considering their core is 28 to 31. But yeah, they have somehow been able to keep this bunch together, and they're all locked up. It's awesome. It's freaking insane. No state income tax.
It's not awesome for fans of any other team,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's impressive how much they've been able to keep this team together. When you look at Tampa and Colorado, who both got stripped apart in the 2 seasons after they won their cup.
Yeah, in Tampa is no state income tax. So yeah, very cool stuff. By them, do you think Vegas is going to get in trouble for tampering or no? I still think the sign and trade happens with Nick Waugh.
I mean, it seems honestly at this point like it's an extortion issue,
yes,
right? Like if Vegas does this sign and trade and gives Toronto an actually decent player,
I think it's gonna be Waugh like a second or third
because Toronto's happy.
Yeah.
If they don't do the sign and trade and just try to sign Marner, Toronto's going to pursue a tampering issue.
Yeah, I respect it. I mean, if they know that, like, I forget who Darren Ferris is, Mitch Marner's agent. If like they know for a fact that they've reached out to Vegas, like fuck it. Vegas ain't no like squeaky clean Saints by any stretch. Fuck them.
No, but they are. Here's my thing though: is
every team does
Vegas
it. Obviously,
does get overhated for the violations that every team does. Yeah. The overall, the average fan hates Vegas hard for doing the same things that everyone else does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yes, Vegas is using LTIR loopholes. Everyone else does. Yes, Vegas is tampering with free agents. Everyone else does.
Mm-hmm.
You're delusional if you think that the other 31 NHL teams are actually waiting until July 1st to start calling players agents. And then dozens of guys are signing contracts within an hour of the market opening.
Yeah, they're just the perfect trifecta of those 3 things. On top, like those 2, the tampering, the LTIR, and the no state income tax. Like it is what drives 70% of the league absolutely fucking insane, those fans. So when they have had so much success that they've had, and especially as an expansion team that came in so recently, like it's part jealousy. There is valid criticisms, and they're fixing it with the collective bargaining agreement that we talked about last week. But yeah, it's hilarious that like one last dance with LTIR with Pietrangelo just and he is hurt. He is definitively hurt, but it is funny that they can just say like, okay, now we have $8.8 million when Pietrangelo wasn't worth 8.8 at this point. So it's definitely benefits them.
Yeah, I mean, I believe there's tampering, but again, there's so many examples of tampering every single season. I mean, like Zach Hyman signed with Edmonton, like 40 minutes after free agency opened. Was he not tampered with? Like, be serious.
It is, yeah. The deals immediately come out. All right, now we are going to do 3 free agency predictions. We're going to go Marchand, Ekblad, Ehlers. Which one do you want to start with?
I'll start with Marchand.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Devils.
Vegas.
So you're saying
yes.
So they're saying Marner's not happening. I penciled in Marner to Vegas. That's why I didn't do Marner. You're saying they're going to both?
I'm thinking that Vegas is going to look at this situation and decide that instead of giving up Nick Waugh, who we like and is on a good contract, and instead of losing a first-round pick for tampering, we do have enough cap space to throw like 2-year, $8 million at Brad Marchand. Marchand will want to be here with a contender. We can offer him more money than the Panthers can offer him. That's where they'll go.
Interesting. I think Tom Fitzgerald, I've already said this like on my hot takes or something like that of the offseason. I think Tom Fitzgerald is fucking desperate, and I think he's going to do something crazy in terms of giving him Marchand like a 4-year, 8.25. He would immediately become the 4th best forward by like a country mile over Timo Meier on that team, and he would still stay in the Northeast area. He is from, I believe, Nova Scotia, so he stays somewhat local, and he can potentially still win at a high level in New Jersey. They're not that far away.
Makes sense, but I have next guy up here.
Going to New Jersey? Ehlers?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm saying Carolina. I think Carolina's just gonna similarly to New Jersey. There's already rumors like I don't think he's a perfect fit for them because he is more of just like a straight skill playmaker. He can goal score at a decent rate, but I think that's Carolina's guy where like they have to get a top end forward. Marner's not going to happen at this point, so I think they're gonna. What's your logic on? I feel like he's just a repeat of like Brat. I don't like that fit.
I basically agree with everything you say about Fitzgerald needing to make moves.
Yeah.
And then I'll go a step further and say the Devils are one of like 3 contending teams that don't seem terrified of signing like these soft all offense guys.
But I mean,
like it feels like a lot of the teams that are in the contending window have their cores, which their cores can be all sorts of combinations, but now they're trying to supplement them, the side pieces, looking at the Florida model, let's get big, let's get physical. New Jersey isn't really doing that, so I see Ehlers as a fit there.
I think that they're going to be reactionary and try to go the opposite way. Not saying they're going to trade a Jesper Bratt or a Jack Hughes, but I'd be quite surprised. I like the boldness, but yeah, I feel like Ehlers is just too redundant for the New Jersey Devils at this point.
I think anyone who can score goals is not redundant because
I wouldn't hate it. Like I wouldn't be like, damn it,
badly they need goal scorers. I will say, because you didn't bring up Brock Besser, I see Carolina swinging and missing at all of the actual top free agents they want, including Ehlers, and I see them settling for Brock Besser.
Besser arguably could be
available option.
Obviously, Ehlers is a better player. We all agree on that, but Besser arguably is a better fit,
the better goal scorer.
Yeah, so I guess I wouldn't completely hate that. And then lastly, Aaron Ekblad, 3, 2, 1, Detroit,
Anaheim.
That'd be so gross. I would hate that. I'll go with Detroit first. He's from Windsor, which, if you don't know, watching at home, that's like the city that's right next to Detroit. It's Canada, but there's a bridge right next to each other. So goes home. They badly need defense. I know that they have ASP within the system, but Yzerman can't be thinking like that much long term at this point. Especially he's already bringing in Gibson to be the goalie. But yeah, I think it just makes sense. It'd be a disaster by the end of it because there's so many miles on his body and he is injury prone. And for Florida, I know we're both not saying that he goes to Florida. I think Zito might just say second pair right-handed defense and we'll figure it out during the season. We got Seth Jones last year, and I'm just going to go like bargain hunting. Ekblad, Detroit, hometown kid, makes sense for next season.
That does make sense. And I frankly agree, even though I'm predicting it, that Ekblad to Anaheim would be gross. I think Anaheim has the right combination, right? Anaheim has more cap space than anyone to go for a big swing here, and they're probably not getting Marner, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
So they have the most cap space to spend. They have an absolutely desperate GM who's clearly interested in trying to win now. The ingredients work there, even though I hate it and it won't make Anaheim a playoff team. I want to go slightly deeper on the free agent market for some other guys.
You can predict it. I'm saving it for a YouTube later.
Yeah, you feel free to predict yours.
I'll react to your predictions.
All right. So Utah, I think, is 1D away from being a complete serious playoff team. Kesselring was their number 2 scoring defenseman last year. Now he's gone.
Jersey was
played Oli Mata and Ian Cole each 20 minutes a game last year. That's not sustainable for a playoff team. So I see them either signing Provorov or Gavrikov, or if the Rangers get Gavrikov, which seems right. Oh, there's no one else tampering in the league.
Yeah,
we just
go after them.
Gavrikov's going to the Rangers a week before it happens. If Gavrikov goes to the Rangers, I assume they're going to try trading Keandre Miller, and I see Utah as a player there. So one way or another, I think Utah gets a legit second pair defenseman to try and boost them up. As I said, Carolina, Brock Besser, I see. Provorov, if he doesn't end up in Utah, I think we'll just take the most money possible from a bad team. I see like either Chicago or San Jose realizing they have way too much money to spend and blowing it all on a Provorov type.
Yeah. I think San Jose is going to spend like the amount of 1 to 2 year deals. They already did that like last summer with like Wenberg and Toffoli was 4 years. But yeah, I think they have to spend like 25 million to get to the floor. None of their young guys have extensions that kick in next summer. So there's going to be some crazy deals coming from some of these bottom feeder teams.
I hope the bottom feeders at least like attempt to spend good money,
2 to 3 year
either
deals.
all on
Nothing
1 year
crazy.
contracts or target young guys. Because I cannot go through another summer of Chicago making the worst moves possible and people
Dude.
saying, actually, it's fine that they're giving Nick Foligno and Corey Perry a combined $7 million a year because cap floor. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's not fine. You can find guys who at least might be part of your future there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and we'll be back here probably Wednesday, maybe Thursday, reacting to all of it. Thank you guys for watching, listening, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.